Today's video, we're going to be talking about an NHL team that, in my opinion, is currently stuck in no man's land without really any direction, as they haven't really been able to get it done in the postseason in the last couple of years. So let's get right into the video. The team I am talking about is the Minnesota Wild. Now, they have been one of the best regular season teams in the past couple of seasons, but they've never been able to get past the second round. These guys have made the playoffs every year for the past year since 2013, and they've really just disappointed their fan base and a lot of people that predicted them to go deeper than they have in the past couple of seasons. Taking a look back at their playoff history since 2013, they were exited in the first round back in 2013, second round for the next 2 seasons, and then first round exits in the past 3 seasons. So for the Minnesota Wild fan base, this really has to start getting frustrating, as they really are the Washington Capitals of the Western Conference, obviously before Washington finally made that run to the Stanley Cup Finals, which they are currently in. But maybe that could be in the near future for the Minnesota Wild, as they really haven't been able to get it done so far throughout the playoffs. They have a very talented roster, and in my opinion, this season against the Jets, they really didn't have a fair chance without their top defenseman, Ryan Suter. The team, when it's all healthy, has a good mix of veteran leadership and young talent, as they have guys like Granlund, Zucker, who are 25 and 26, obviously Nino Niederreiter, and then you have veterans like Mikko Koivu, Eric Staal, Ryan Suter, obviously, and guys like that. Zach Parise, another one who's on a very not team-friendly contract, which is something they're going to have to be excited for when that finally runs up, or if they can maybe somehow find a way to move it. But if Zach Parise can stay healthy, I still think he can be a solid NHL player. But the window, I think, on the Minnesota Wild having a chance to compete is closing in, as Eric Staal, I don't think he's going to repeat the season that he had, obviously scoring over 40 goals. Mikko Koivu is obviously on a steady decline, and I think that's coming soon for Ryan Suter as well. But obviously you have a lot of young talent to take over that, as I feel like Granlund can kind of step into the shoes of Koivu, and then you have guys like Niederreiter and Zucker, and obviously Joel Eriksson-Ek, who is still a highly touted prospect for this team that they really are wanting more from next season. And Matt Dumba is a guy I think is fantastic. I think he can fill in perfectly once Ryan Suter doesn't still be that top defenseman. He showed that in the playoffs. He logged a lot of minutes. It seemed like against the Winnipeg Jets, Matt Dumba was always on the ice, and I think he had a fantastic year that kind of doesn't really get talked about enough, as there are so many solid young defensemen in the NHL. But Matt Dumba really could be a superstar defenseman for this team for the future, so they certainly do have some bright spots going forward. If the deep run in the playoffs for the Minnesota Wild is going to happen, in my opinion, it's going to happen within the next 2 seasons, because obviously the veterans are getting up there in age. Suter's 33, Eric Staal's 33, Parise's 33, and Mikko Koivu's obviously getting up there in age. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if these guys still got a couple of good seasons left in them, and this young talent can step up, and maybe the front office can add a couple of more pieces to really put this team over the edge. Obviously, they have the goaltender. Devan Dubnyk is fantastic. Had a bit of a shaky postseason, but what can you do? That happens sometimes. But he's going to need to be better in the playoffs next year if the Wild want to make a deep run. And obviously, the Western Conference is tough. That first round matchup against Winnipeg without your star defenseman, I saw them getting destroyed, and they lost in 5. So it's going to be tough to play against Western Conference teams. I mean, I think arguably the Western Conference is the stronger all-around conference. So for the Minnesota Wild, they're really going to have to play fantastic, and in my opinion, they really do need to be a top seed and get home ice advantage throughout the playoffs if they're going to want to make that deep run, because Winnipeg's home ice is insane. Vegas is great. You're going to need home ice in the Western Conference if you really do want to make a run and beat these teams. The Wild have around $7 million in cap space, and with the cap going up, that's pretty flexible. It's a decent amount, and the really 2 only big-name players that they have to bring back this offseason are restricted free agents Jason Zucker and Matthew Dumba, who I think Dumba is the future of your blue line, so you certainly have to do everything you can to bring him back. He's due for a big raise after the big year and playoffs that he had, and 26-year-old Jason Zucker, who had a 30-goal season, he's definitely due for a big raise as well. So I think the main priorities of the offseason are bringing them 2 guys back, and other than that, most of the core players are still going to be around, and obviously you still have Devan Dubnyk coming back for the next couple of seasons. So really, they're sitting fine right now. It's just going to be interesting to see if they can add another piece or 2 that can just put them over the edge and really make them true contenders, as nobody really takes them seriously in the Western Conference, kind of like no one took the Washington Capitals seriously, obviously, before they made the Stanley Cup Finals this season. So for this team, I think the most important thing is just do everything you can to get home ice in the opening rounds of the playoffs next season, as this team really needs a Western Conference Finals appearance, and that could be what it takes to put them over the edge and make that run to the finals. Just like with the Washington Capitals, they finally got past the second round, and then obviously we see them in the Stanley Cup Finals currently. They play Vegas tonight. That's going to be a fun game to watch. But nonetheless, I really do want to see the Minnesota Wild do well. I think their fans deserve it, and the players on this team deserve it. Eric Staal, I think, has just been playing fantastic. He really revitalized his career in Minnesota, so I think he deserves another late playoff run, as Mikko Koivu is another guy who I think deserves to go all the way and try to compete for a Stanley Cup. And the last time Zach Parise did, he lost in the Stanley Cup Finals with the New Jersey Devils, so he's definitely thriving for another deep playoff run. And I think all these guys are going to have to continue to play well. I think staying healthy is a huge thing, especially with Zach Parise, who I think can still be a solid 25 to 30 goal scorer for the Minnesota Wild. And obviously, they're a pretty deep team. I think Joel Eriksson Ek is only going to get better and play better next year. Same goes for Matt Dumba, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Let me know your guys' predictions down below, what you think is going to happen with the Minnesota Wild and where you think they're going to finish next season. I've got them finishing top 2 in their division, which is obviously a stretch, but I really just think it's now or never for the Minnesota Wild, as they're kind of stuck in the middle right now and no one really takes them serious. So that is going to wrap up the video. Make sure you guys let me know your thoughts on the Minnesota Wild down in the comment section below. And if you guys knew that this is the team the video was going to be about, obviously before the video gets started. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for some daily NHL content. And I'll see you guys in the next video.